Hi there, Jono here. Today's video we're going to install OpnSense in a virtual machine. Now the first thing we need to do is figure out what port on our NIC card belongs to what network name. So to do this we can simply type IP space A and then grep it to state up so we can see the connections that are currently connected and up. So if we look, we've got EN01 and VMBR0 that are showing as up. And if we check in our connection or the network list, we can see that VMBR0 is linked to EN01 and those are shown up. And of course we know it's up because that is what we're accessing our Proxmox from. Okay, so at the switch, I'm going to take the first WAN connection and I'll plug it into the first port on our network card. Now if we type in that command again, we will see we now have ENP7S0F0, which is showing as up. So from here we know that that first port we want it to be our first LAN. So we can double click on it and we'll give it a comment so that we know what it is in the future. So I'll call it WAN1 and then I'll put in the IP address. So now we will go and repeat this for the next one. So our second port is going to be management. Our third port will be WAN2. So we're just going to plug it into WAN2, run the command again in the shell. And now we'll see we have ENP9S0F0, which is showing up. So we can find that in our list. We can add a comment, and we now know that that will be WAN2. And again, I'll just put the IP address so we have an idea of what it will be. Now with this in mind, we can deduce that the next port next to it will be our management port. So we can double click on that and be management. We can comment this as well for the last port. So last port we know we're going to set as a trunk, so I'll call it trunk. Okay, now to create the bridges. So I'm just going to go create new bridge. I'll choose the first port, so that's the ENP7, and then I'll give it a name as OP1. And I'll create the next bridge. So this will be the ENP7 S0F1, and I'll call this OP man or management so we know. And we'll do this again for the next one. I'm just going to copy and paste it so it will be less chance of making a mistake. Pasted. This will be WAN2. And then finally we'll do for the last one, this will be our trunk, OP trunk. Yeah, so now with all our network connections, we can click the apply configuration button and let it apply the network configurations. And now we are ready to move on to downloading the ISO. So you can go to opensense.org/download. From here, what we need to do is, the only option is AMD64. We need to choose the DVD version. That will give us an ISO that we can upload to Proxmox. Once it's downloaded, it will be a BR2 file. You can extract it to the ISO. Then in Proxmox, under your local drive, you can click on the ISO menu, click upload, search for that ISO, and then upload it. Okay, once it's done, you should see the new, in this case OpnSense 24, ready for us. Now we move on to creating the virtual machine. On the top right, we'll click the Create VM button. And then we'll give it a name. So in this case, we'll call it OpnSense. Make sure to have the advanced box ticked. Once it's ticked, you'll have the option. We can tick it to start at boot, and then we'll set it as 1 in the boot order. That way we know it will always boot first. Under the DVD, you can just make sure to choose that ISO that we uploaded. System, we'll leave it as is. For disk, I'm going to use 32 gigs. Since I want to have IDS and RPS and blocklist and things like that, the more space the merrier. For the CPU, we'll give it 4 cores, and I'll give it direct access to the host CPU. I'm not going to virtualize any CPU. For the memory, I'll give it 4 gigs of RAM. That will give it enough RAM for, again, doing RPS, if you want to do VPNs, all of that sort of stuff. For now, we'll just add the first WAN connection, but we'll add the rest in a bit. Once you're done, you can click Finish. So from here, we can click on the new virtual machine that's created on the left. Go to Hardware, Add, and then Network Devices. We'll just go and add each bridge to the virtual machine. And we'll make sure to do it in order. Once done, we actually want the firewall option off. It won't really cause any harm if you leave it on, but since we're not going to be using the firewall option in Proxmox for those bridges, we can just turn them all off. Now that we have our bridges, I'd recommend we just remove all the connections. So we can start the virtual machine, and then on the left, click under the console. Now we will wait for OpnSense to boot up. It can take a very long time, so I've sped it up by 600%. Okay, once it's loaded, we can log in with the user installer. So we'll type in installer, and then the password is OpnSense, or small letters, OpnSense. From here, you can choose your keyboard mapping. So mine, I'll just leave it as US, the default. You can choose if you want to use ZFS or UFS. I'll use UFS, it's up to you. And then we'll choose a 32 gig hard drive, the one that we created when created in the VM. You can choose yes for the swap disk, and then yes to confirm. The installation process can also take a very long time, so once again I've sped it up by 600%. Okay, once it's done, we can push enter to change the root password. So this will change it from the OpnSense to whatever you like. So I'm going to fill in a password that I would like, and then once I'm happy, you can press enter. Please note that once again, this can take a bit of time to apply. Okay, once done, we can click or select the complete installation. While it's busy rebooting, we can go into the hardware section, double click on the CD drive and just choose do not use any media. This will just stop the VM from booting from the CD or the ISO again. So once it's booting up again, it can take a bit of time. So we'll connect the WAN 1 again into the NIC and then the management. So you can log in and we'll do the first option because we want to assign the first two interfaces. So we can choose no for lags and no for VLANs. For WAN, what we want to do is add the first one, the VT-net 0. So as you can see, it's got the net 0. If we go back to our list, you can see it. Net 0 is the first bridge we added, which was WAN 1. So they pretty much go in order. So we'll type here VT-net 0, press enter. And then we know our LAN or management 1 will be the next one. So VT-net 1, push enter. From there we can push enter to confirm that those are the end. Type in Y, enter again. All the needed services will restart. And there we are, we're completed. So we can see our first one is up. We've got the correct IP address. And then for the LAN, it's created 192.168.1.1 DHCP network for us. I'm then going to plug directly to that LAN connection. And you can see we were given a 192.168.1.101 IP, so we know it's working. We can then type 192.168.1.1 to access the OpnSense Web UI. Then you can put in your root, the username root and the password you created. Press enter to log in. If you are confronted with the setup wizard, you can just ignore it. What we'll do is we'll go into the dashboard, so lobby dashboard, and we will start manually adding the other two connections. So we'll go interfaces, assignments, we'll choose the second one, and this we know will be our WAN 2 connection or network. So we'll type in WAN 2, add. We'll repeat this for the last one, which will be our trunk. You can click save once we've added them. Now we need to enable them. So we'll click on the trunk one and we'll enable it. Since this is just going to be a trunk, we don't need to change any of the configurations. We'll do that in a later tutorial. We can then go and continue and do this for our WAN 2, enable it. We'll set the IP version 4 to DHCP as we'll get an IP address from our main router, and then you can click save, and once we're done we can apply those changes. Please note that it does take a bit of time to apply, so again this is sped up by 600%. So if we go to the dashboard and we scroll down, we should now see the correct IP address for our second WAN. There we go. So everything is good. So now the last thing we really need to do is let's change the LAN interface to say management. So we'll go to interfaces, LAN, and rename it to management. And since we wanted to use, so we're going to use IP version 4 only, so I'm going to choose none for IP version 6. And since we wanted to use the 10.0.0.1 range for management, I'm just going to change it here. Now the next part is very important. When we click save, we need to first change the DHCP settings. Otherwise, if you click apply now, you won't be able to log in again because you will be getting the wrong DHCP or it won't start. So we'll go under services, ISC DHCP version 4 and click on management. As you can see, the subnet is wrong, so we need to set it to our 10 range, so 10.0.0, and we'll use, for example, 10 to 10.0.0.60. Again, you can set it up to however you want. Once we have done that, we can click save. Now, since we haven't applied the interface settings yet, you'll see that the service is stopped. But once we click the apply, we can leave it, let's say, about 2 minutes, give it 2 minutes or so to load. Now, of course, since we've changed it, we won't be able to log in. So we need to unplug a cable from our computer, plug it back in, and you should get a new IP address in the 10 range. We then need to go to 10.0.0.1 now to access our OpnSense UI. You can accept the self-signed certificate, sign in, and there we go. We've now got our management network set up, our trunk, and our 2 WAN connections are working. So thank you for watching. I hope you've learned a bit from here. If it's helped you, please like and subscribe. I appreciate it. It would help grow the channel. And then in our next video, we'll go through setting up our managed switch again. Set some ports up for our management network. And then we'll also add an access point to it so we can connect to it a lot easier. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.